Hi guys, welcome back. Thank you for doing the Do Now. Let's have a look at Greek music. So, we know that our Rhythms of the World section, we've covered Calypso and Samba in South America. We've covered African rhythms and drumming in Western Sub-Saharan Africa. We've looked at Indian classical music and Bhangra in the Indian subcontinent. And we've got our sort of Middle Eastern and Southern European section, which is Greek music and Israeli and Palestinian music. Now, if we look at Greece here, so this is the Greek nation, and it's just to the east of Italy. And what's really interesting about Greece is that it sits at the sort of epicenter of four continents. Well, not four continents, but three continents and four sort of areas of musical interest. Okay, so we've got Europe to the west, which is all the Western European influences that we've looked at within the Western classical tradition, the pop ballad, in which we covered pop music in general, folk, rock and roll, but also the classical concerto, romantic concerto, baroque concerto. So all that exists in Italy, France, the UK, but also Austria and Vienna up here. So they take Greek music takes a lot of influence from there. We've also got influence from the Middle East, which is over here. So this is Israel, Palestine, um, Saudi Arabia to the south, etc. And then we've got influences from North Africa. So we're looking at Chad, we're looking at Algeria, we're looking at Egypt, etc. Morocco, etc. And then we've got Asia to the east as well. So we've got influences from um, Russian, southern Russian folk music, but also sort of some leanings towards Pakistan, Uzbekistan, even. So we've got loads of influences going on in Greek music, right? And you got to remember that Greece was one of the, it was in classical time, two of the biggest empires ever known to man. So there's a ton that has gone into Greek music and influenced it. So, what we have to think about is three things. Firstly, Greek music is based on something called modes, right? So, modes are like diatonic scales, they're like major and minor scales, but the notes that are in them change ever so slightly, all right? So, there's a ton of modes. You don't need to know what those modes are, but they're called things like Dorian, Aeolian, Phrygian, etc. Right? But it's not important that you understand them. All that you need to know is that rather than using traditional diatonic scales, they use modes, which are just like scales, really. Greek music, traditional Greek music, folk music, used in celebrations. They also have ballads, which are based around stories. And then they've got music that is about social or political issues, and they call that rebetiko. Okay, and that is they're sort of they're just more politically leaning. They use a lot of traditional instruments, but each of those traditional instruments has very close ties to instruments that we commonly see in the West. Okay, so we'll look at them and how they link in with instruments that we see in the West. All right, so we're going to look at some instrumentation next, but first of all, let's just do this quiz section on the assignments, and then we'll go into some instrumentation. Okay, thanks.